Hello viewers, you're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we're broadcasting from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliou Cisse. It's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program. As usual, I'm joined in the studio by my co-host, Mr. Sidi Cisse. Sidi.
Thank you very much, Ali, for having me.
Thank you very much, Sidi Cisse. As you already know, the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, last Thursday delivered his constitutionally mandated State of the Nation address, where he highlighted his government's achievements, programs, and of course challenges that really confronted his development plans. But you know what? His address has been received with divergent views. I mean, with others, thanking him for delivering what they see as a very good speech. But for others, the statement falls short of really telling people what the reality on the ground is. And joining us this week to discuss the President's State of the Nation address, I have Mr. Mar Nyang, who is the founder and executive director of Gambia Participate. Mar is also an anti-corruption activist and, of course, government budget research expert. Mar, good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me, Aliou.
And also in the studio, I have Seth Mati Jau. Seth, where's your passport? By the way, Seth Mati is the executive director of Center for Research and Policy Development. Seth Mati, good to have you on the program.
Thank you. Always happy to be around.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Mar. I mean, just let's lay the foundation. I mean, how will you assess the President's SONA 2022 before we get into the specifics areas that we will discuss later?
Well, first, I think there are some important data and information that he has come up with, and I think the only reason why I'm very disappointed with his speech is because we have not seen him admitting some of the big issues that our country is facing. I think we have not been seeing that forthcoming. I mean, like I keep saying, we first need to admit that there is a problem, and then you invite people to collaborate with them in fixing those identified issues. But every time to saying we are doing well in this sector, things are progressing, I mean, those are not the reality, honestly. So especially the Constitution, I mean, since the rejection of the Constitution, we have not seen the President come in. I mean, before, in fact, the rejection of the Constitution, the President could have actually come out and then encouraged the parliamentarians for them to pass the Constitution. So he manifested to us totally that he was not in support of the Constitution. Right now, you are now calling for another Constitution to be passed. I mean, the process is not going to be that easy. We've already learned our lessons, and then the reason why he was also not in support of the Constitution, those are some of the things that he has to admit. Security-wise as well, I mean, the country is drowning. Corruption is endemic in this country. To say that the anti-corruption bill is now with Parliament, he has now done his part. His government has done his part. Now the Parliament is now saying that the bill has to be reintroduced by the Ministry of Justice. So to say that the anti-corruption bill, I mean, this is what we said in 2020, and it's the same thing that 2022. So I keep saying to someone else that I know it was going to be a repetition of the same thing. So we need to hear the real pressing issues that are coming up. What the constructive steps, the transformational steps that the government is taking to fixing the issues that people are really been talking about. So I think that element is lacking in the report. I think I actually see it as a self credit statement.
And Seth Mati, your take?
Well, I mean, for me, if you say State of the Nation, I mean, it like Mar said, you are telling us what the reality is. I mean, we are not interested in somebody trying to package, their efforts over the period, but to openly tell us that, of course, the country is going through this difficult period. But what I saw was more of like a report that is just showing in terms of activity, we have done this activity, we have done that activity, but those activities are not directly connected to my lives in terms of, I mean, we're talking about the issue of security. Security is a major challenge here, and why security is a major challenge is not because, I mean, the security people don't want to do their work, but because also there have been a lot of gaps and challenges that continue to affect them. And today, those issues have not been addressed. And I also think, I saw a total disconnect between President Barrow and us, in a sense that all the things that he was saying were nice things, as if this what government was doing, but like ask the people. I mean, how is their living condition? I mean, it's terrible. People are hungry, people are starving, and those are issues that could have been addressed. But for me, I think also the State of a Nation address must be an address that inspired the nation to start thinking ahead. One, it was too late. It came almost at the end of the year. I mean, and at the end of the year, so at the end, it just become a report that, okay, we have done this project, we have done that project. But for me, I think it should have gone beyond, or even why those projects were introduced, and to mobilize. It should be an opportunity to mobilize the people so that they can listen to what the president was saying. But at the end of the day, for me, it was, we were successful here, this is successful, we are in progressing, but we don't see those things. And I think for me, this was the disconnect. And the president needs to come down, need to be available, need to know what is happening. I mean, like, he's from us. He knows the challenges in this country, and he was elected in the first place to address those challenges. And to come and tell us other stories while we know what we are facing, I think for me that statement was far short of really being honest to Gambians.
And earlier on, Mari, you talked about the Constitution. I mean, one will say, I mean, because he said the Minister of Justice is going to work on crafting another Constitution, which will be brought to Parliament. We only hope it will be passed this time. But isn't that a sign of efforts on the side of the executive, that they, they still want to bring in a new Constitution?
Well, the will has ever been there for there to be a new Constitution. We know from the beginning that his administration wanted a new Constitution to be there. But the way and manner the draft Constitution was rejected in 2020, we all know, even though we have not seen him coming out, him as the president coming out to explain, or should I say encouraging the parliamentary to pass the parliament, we have sensed that he was not in support of the Constitution. So now, bringing back another Constitution, I mean, this is a political process. Even if it is passed at the National Assembly level, it goes to a referendum. And oppositions that might be against the Constitution will campaign against the Constitution. So for us, I think what we have to do now is not only the Ministry of Justice crafting a new Constitution, but going back and identify the issues that warranted the rejection of the Constitution. Engage the religious groups, engage the oppositions, engage other sectors, right? This, I mean, we've heard what parliamentarians were talking about. Some of them were complaining about the judges and their allowances, the retroactivity of the, some of clauses that affecting the president, and all of these issues. Bring the oppositions. Let's have a consensus. Let's discuss and have a consensus regarding these contentious clauses. Now, once we clear the table, then it can go back to Parliament, but not just. The Ministry of Justice now started working on amending here what the president wanted. The Constitution cannot be customized to fit the interests of the president. I mean, that's what we have seen in the 1997 Constitution. If you look at when they passed the 1997 Constitution in, I guess it was about, was it 1997 or 1996? 1997. Between that period to 2001, I think they have amended the Constitution 36 times in 2001 alone, out of the 46 amendments that they have made. So that 36 amendments could have been something else that the president wanted it to be done in order to, have his power let's say, have the executive monopoly in the administration, and that also helped him to perpetuate his reign in the Second Republic. So I think that is the process that the Ministry of Justice have to take. Engage all of these stakeholders. Let's now clear out the issues that you were not, like I say, it's a political issue. There has to be a compromise in this game, right? I call it a game because everyone is looking at their interests. The citizens are looking at their interests, the executive, the opposition, all of them are looking at their interests. But now, the interest must not supersede the interests of the citizens. So if the Minister of Justice draft another constitution without going through that process, if it goes to Parliament, remember we have a good number of oppositions and also independent candidates in the National Assembly. If they are unable to reach the two-thirds majority to vote in support of that bill, even if they reach that, the opposition can go out and then say, don't vote in support of this constitution. If it goes to referendum and we don't have the 75% of the voters saying yes to it, then we have to go back to the drawing board. So I think the conversation has to start now. To answer your question, yes, there has ever been a will from the oppositions and that of the incumbent for there to be a new constitution. But what type of constitution do we all want? That's the question that we need to asking ourselves.
And before I bring in CD here, Sedmati, you said, I mean, the statement shows that the president is totally disconnected with the people. You talk about the issue of, skyrocketing of basic commodities, I mean, cost of living, among other things. What were you expecting to hear from the president as far as these issues are concerned?
For me, I usually get inspiration from, I really appreciate the job of Sadara Kairaba Jawara and others, because one of their methods of governance was being honest to the people, especially during the economic recovery program. I remember where they came out publicly and say, well, these are the real realities that this country is currently facing. And for me, that's what I expect in a leader that tells us, because, he has all the information. He knows what is happening. He has all the data. He's the president, for God's sake. So he knows what is happening in this country. But then you come and just tell us, well, my government has done this, my government has done that, and that is not reflecting right in the lives and affairs of the people. For me, I don't see that. If they talk about improving what? Improving, recovering the economy, doing certain things, and now they're blaming it on Ukraine war, COVID-19. We always looking for things to blame, instead of looking inward and seeing how do we fix the mess that we are creating. And for me, the statement was, well, we wanted to do this, but COVID-19 came. What? Like COVID-19 problems will always come, but how are we addressing those issues? For me, are the issues. Recently, we have seen transport union strike. We have seen even the oil company strike. It affected the lives of the people, and nothing of those was, nothing of sort was even discussed. And yet, you are promising people again that you will bring a constitution. What kind of constitution are we talking about? How is the process going to be? The country, what we need right now, and that's what I want the president to lead, and this is what is expected, there needs to be that national dialogue. And I've been talking about this since 2017 when the change happened, because we haven't been politically stable. Because everything is about the winner takes all, those kind of stuff. But if we are to design a constitution, it has to be for everybody. And so far, that conversation is not there. The government is not as open as we expected, because, before, even with education policy, you see Jawara and others will bring in all the opposition. When you read those kind of reports, you see how policy was being done. But here, everything is done there, and then they later hand it over to the people. People, our generation have passed that. We want to be part of processes. We want to be part of the implementation. We also want to be the beneficiaries of those kind of projects. But so far, what I see with this government is, we're going to do this. They do little what they do, and then they blame COVID-19, they blame Ukraine war, and people stay in poverty and hunger.
And talking about the economy, he said, and I quote, he said the debt services payment increased by 11.1% from 4.5 billion in 2020 to 5 billion in 2021. What does this tell about our economy?
We are technically enslaved as a country, basically. Whether we know it or not, because we are technically enslaved. Bor danko fay, you have to pay. And like, people are complaining about jobs, but every day the way they're financing government is through taxation. If there is not enough money, they go for loans. If they don't have grants, they go for loans. And continuously we get indebted, and yet we expect to deliver services for the people. But yet, while they're taking the loans, if they're flying somewhere, they take private jets. They take all those things. And you are talking about a poor country. And then you go around the world begging, and yet in this country we're not doing anything. We're not managing properly. So we are an indebted country. We are a country that cannot afford certain things because we have to pay our debts. Look at it. We are paying. Millions that could have gone to the people, could go into education. Now we're just paying it. But even the loan that we are taking, how are we using it in the productive sectors? Because loans should generate. It should pay itself back. But our loans are just for chopping, to pay salary and then to sit down. And these are the questions that this country needs to start asking. And this is the state of the country, where the country is highly indebted, people are poor, education is failing, healthcare is failing. All these things are the issues that we need to address. But we have not been addressing those issues. We are saying that it is okay, it is nice, or we are chilling in this way. But no, we need to feel that there is change. But we are not feeling that.
Yes. About the corruption, the issue of corruption. Earlier you talked about the anti-corruption bill, which is still in Parliament. Will you blame the president for that, or the National Assembly?
I think
the executive has done their work.
Before I answer that question, I just wanted to also supplement some of the things that said regarding the debt. Okay. If you look at the debt burden that we have on us in the country as of last year, it was about $81 billion, and it's on the increase. So out of that, I think 46 billion is actually coming from domestic debts. That means debts that have been taken from within the Gambia. Now, what will happen if the government is unable to pay those debts? What are some of the economic impact that it will have in the lives of the people and also in our economy? I think, like Seth mentioned, what we need to now start looking at is how do we increase revenue collection in the Gambia? I mean, there was a communique from the Office of the President stating that they should start investigating the secure report leakages at the airport. So they know that there are leakages. And then also if you go to GRA, I think CD also will have something else to say, right? In other areas, they also know that there are leakages in the revenue collection. Now, how do we close those leakages to ensure we increase our revenue collection, we manage it well, and then we start using those revenue to start allocating it to different areas and also industrialize the country so that we will continue to increase revenue. I mean, I have not heard what the president has to say regarding the impact of the budget on the economy of the country in terms of the jobs that have been created. I don't know how many jobs that he has created since he came into office. I don't know how that has reduced poverty in this country. I don't also know how youth have been benefiting from this job. We need the data. The data is missing. We don't want to be depending on these these statements here and there. We want data. So if that data is missing, then something is wrong. I mean, they can actually get that data. I know the GPOS knows the integrated household survey, but we want the president to come on and tell us, since I came into office, these are the number of jobs that I have created, and it has reduced poverty in the country by so and so percentage. So the issue of the anti-corruption bill, that you cannot blame the executive, you cannot blame office of the president about it, because I know the executive have ever since wanted to get this anti-corruption bill legislated. I think in December 2019 was when they tabled this anti-corruption bill. So the legislatures, the fifth legislature actually, I was disappointed the fact that since they came into office 2 years later, they got that bill tabled and they have not done much. So meaning that then legislators were not prioritizing the issue of anti-corruption in this country. So I was pretty much very disappointed. Year in, year out, we've always been pushing for that. Now, we have the sixth legislature, and then the hope is that they will prioritize this anti-corruption. Look, I keep saying, all of these issues that we keep talking about here, incompetence, abuse of power, corruption here and there, all the other bills that we are also coming up with, all the other legislations, if you don't have a deterrence mechanism, if you don't have a bill or a law that puts sanctions, or a bill that will be monitoring to ensure that people do not abuse their power or people do not abuse public offices, to ensure they effectively implement those government policies, then forget about all of these legislations. You need an effective, strong anti-corruption commission. And you know, when we talk about corruption, what we always focus on is the monetary part of it. It's important, but the institutional part of it is also very important, because if the democratic institutions are being weakened, right, you cannot take corruption out of the equation, because if people are leaving their offices to conduct their own businesses or using the offices to conduct their own businesses, it compromises the productivity of this democratic institution and also slows government's transactions. So you need this anti-corruption commission to ensure all the other policies are being implemented, and then ensure as well the revenues that have been collected, budgets that have been allocated are put in the right direction. But most importantly, the budgets that have been allocated to different sectors yield the dividends that they have mapped out as their intended outcomes. So I think the fifth legislature, there is no bill, the sixth legislature currently, there is no bill that is more important than the anti-corruption bill. Someone will say health reforms, legal reforms. Well, if you go to the health sector, you have pharmacists that are using government pills and then selling it while we've heard it from our engagement that we've been having with communities, especially in Banjul. A woman stood up and then said, if you go to the RVT head, when they prescribe a medication to you, if you go to the pharmacy, they will tell you this medication isn't available, but there is someone else that has the medication, he's selling it. And then you buy it from there. Now, if you don't have an anti-corruption commission to investigate that things will continue. So you need these systems to be there in order for others to build. So I think that is totally on the shoulders of the legislature to ensure there is that sound anti-corruption bill legislated.
Sidi, I know you want to comment.
Thank you very much, Aliu, and thank you, Matt and Seth. Earlier on, said you talked about admitting, and you talk about the blame game of Ukraine, COVID, and all that. But I mean, I guess you're aware there are challenges, as we speak right now. So, what do you think is, as we speak, the challenges for us as a country?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest challenge, I'm going to be biased. I think the biggest challenge that we're facing is a political problem. And when you talk about politics, we're talking about governance challenges. I mean, and this is why you have leakages, because the governance framework is not working. It's not well oiled. We are having a constitution. I mean, Mari is talking about anti-corruption, but for me, I think the overarching issue is the constitution. Because the 1997 constitution, as much as it is still holding the fort, it is as undemocratic as we can think. And throughout our history, we have been and even if you look at our laws, whether it is the police, the security, a lot of the issues that we are complaining about is the laws. And in that place, for me, I think that's the number one. But the second problem, I think, within the political framework is the fact that we don't want to have dialogues. Even a constitution came, it failed. We even imported somebody to come and help us dialogue to fix those things. But all the political leaders. I'm talking about the politicians.
Who do you have to blame for that specific?
I mean, our job as an activist is to raise the bell, but there's a job of people, policymakers, to make the right policies on our own behalf. And if they don't do it, whether they are in the opposition or in the front, they are the ones that are responsible. Because at the end of the day, opposition are government in waiting. So for me, I feel that our political leaders need to start having that conversation. They need to start thinking collectively, because it's not about, here our mentality is winner take all. Like once you are in power, therefore you can decide everything and nobody cares. But for me, that is the problem. What we need to do, and I keep reminding, is to have a national dialogue, genuine national dialogue, not just to do it for the media, but just to do it so.
One will say you can have the best national dialogue, you can have the best laws, but the attitude of the people.
That's why I'm talking about genuine.
Yes.
Things that we feel.
So what will make many Gambians very decent, but there are many of them who actually, just go out just for themselves. What will make them to start thinking the responsibility? I think that is missing. The responsibility that you sit in that office, you have a job to do, and do it to the fullest.
You see, that's why I said I am with the 1965 people, because those are the people that I see as heroes. Those were the people that fought for us to have this country, this beautiful country. But then the way we inherited, everybody start thinking what? Fankong. Everybody to their self. For them, they were thinking about the collective, Tisito. Let us build. That's why communities were building schools. They were able to inspire communities to do things on their own, to support those things. What is missing? Why is it that we are not doing those things? Why is it that we are complaining about healthcare when communities could have built?
Here to help us.
Yeah, communities. I mean, is the approach to development, because at the end of the day, we have left our development to the international community. Now what we do is we design a national development plan, and one of the reasons of having national development plan is so that we can have people to support our projects. But we are not thinking internally. We are thinking individually, and we are not thinking collectively. So that's why in the office, whether it's the president, whether it's myself, whether anybody, we start thinking, what can Said Matijao get first, then before the rest of the society, But how do we move beyond today and start thinking about tomorrow?
But those politicians are not sitting in those offices, for example. A police checkpoint sitting on the road is not a politician. It's not the person who is you've elected in office. He's there to do his job. If he's sincere and honest, he will do a perfect job. But the sincerity and the honesty is what is missing in this gypsum.
I totally agree. Everything also has to down to the individual. They are very individual. For me, I always say that the majority of good people in this country, the good are the majority in this country, and then the small people are the ones creating this, because bad flows easily. People hear bad stuff easily, rather than seeing people that are really doing good work or appreciating them. And it has become a culture. It has become a culture, and we are disconnected. We don't have even intergenerational dialogues. We don't learn from the experiences of the past. For me, I think we have a developmental challenge, and that's why they need for that conversations to continue. Because sometimes people can be inspired, like they can be doing something, and you as a citizen, yes, there's a policeman standing there and want to take advantage of you. When you refuse, what can he do? Because sometimes the responsibility is ours, because the Constitution doesn't say police, it says citizens. Yeah. It's the citizens that should defend the Constitution. It's the citizens that should develop this country. But what? Do we want to be getting money from the UNDP, and then we leave our ocean, we leave our available land, or we just sit at home not working because you are working, so therefore we all depend on you? Our governance mentality, the way we are thinking, is all dependence. We're all dependent on everybody else. You know, why not we start thinking about ourselves? How do we work?
We need to go back on the drawing board for that thinking to happen.
We need to go back to the drawing board, but we need to be genuine. And we need to not only going back, but we need to start thinking about the future. We had like a young generation. We are the ones that are parents now, but we are still the one that is responsible for our parents. And so we have two responsibilities, our generation. We are the most troubled generation in this country. Yeah, because we have a responsibility to take care of the parents, but we also have a responsibility to take care of our future kids. How are we going to educate them? What kind of investment are we going to put into them? But we're not thinking about that. We are thinking about, oh, we have, build road, and now the road is flooding. I mean, like, we are not thinking about the future. And so for us to build, we should not think about how we benefit today, but how the child that is yet to born is going to benefit in 50 to 100 years later. That's the way they think.
I want to bring in...
I just want to come to Matt quickly.
Please, yeah.
Yes. You've been here, Gambia Participate. You've been renownedly known for the good work that you're doing. The outreach program that you do, how far have you gone to the length and the breadth of the country? Because, like we said earlier, the citizens' participation and knowing themselves is missing. Are you seeing any achievement that you are doing in terms of citizen participation and achievement in knowing who we are as a person?
I mean, our outreach program are into 3 different areas: elections, anti-corruption, and fiscal transparency. To answer your questions, whether the citizens are seeing themselves, I think, especially when we engage citizens on budget and anti-corruption, we always bring in information that is actually new to them. So some of these corrupt issues that we have identified, reported, and then also presented to citizens, or whereas expenditures or the monies that have been misappropriated that we report to the citizens are actually very much, should I say, flabbergasted with those findings, right? And they don't actually believe that there are certain people in our system, or we will have a certain government that will allow these mishaps to be happening, and at the end of the day, there is no accountability. And especially sometimes the way we actually do our outreach, when the money is stolen, or let's say it's been misappropriated, the auditors report, what we do, we go to the community and tell you, look, this money that has been misappropriated, it could have actually given you A, B, C, D, and E. Now that's how they get to see themselves in it. And then they will actually start reacting. But I think one thing, we do the civic education, it's important, but citizens are more interested, especially in these poor communities. They wanted to put food on the table. That's their thinking every day. If you go there, they wanted to make sure that there's food on the table, no one is being starved, and everyone is being healthy. So all the others, it is only some people that do not have, maybe should I say, much problem, that will start focusing on pushing these issues. So I think here the fundamental problem is poverty. Now, how do you address that? We have this Meet the People store that is a constitutional mandate, I believe section 222, subsection 15. It allows the government, the president, to go out and meet the people, but to familiarize himself with the conditions of the people and government policies and its impact on the people. Now, every single time we spend millions to go to this Meet the People store, we already know what the fundamental problem of these people are. First, I mean, it used to be Meet the Farmer store, because it was the farmer that they used to be, but now they've changed it. We know the issues of the farmers, and then we have fertile land that, if honest, could actually enhance the productivity of our agricultural sector. And then also, I've seen some parliamentarians or some councillors starting to establish what they call food bank, so no one else goes starved in their communities, right? That is a good move. Now, at national level, how do we ensure we empower our farmers so that they will not be subsistence farmers, but to become a commercial farmer? And most of the product that they are producing, how do we ensure that we put mechanisms to ensure we mechanize or we process those products and then sell it within? All the inflation that we're talking about, cabbage, you go to the market, most of those will actually come from the outside. They invest in it, they will input it in here. The issue of oil, I mean, if we have enough raw products in this country that could be processed and produce these oils, rice and oils, I believe it's just a matter of the leadership. And then also, like Seth said, thinking 100 years beyond today. How do we ensure that we bring in all of these materials, all of these industries, to ensure first you're not only maximizing food product and then also reducing the inflation on food products, but also you are also creating jobs for communities. One thing that actually stood out when we actually engaged the community of Kololi, there was a lady that said, look, let's start thinking about upcountry. During Jawara's time, there are little people that will migrate from rural to urban. But now everyone is in the urban area. That's why crimes. I mean, this is her word, and it's the reality. Crimes are actually escalating, right? Young people are actually taking the back way because the rural community is dry. You come to an urban area where there is less jobs, and then all that you have to do is to fend for yourself. And if you do not have much, or should I say, the avenues, the legal ways to actually get money, you actually get into this back way, or you start stealing. And some people are depressed and they start, the crime rate is actually high because if, like they said, a hungry man is an angry man. So I think really the communities have been seeing themselves, but what when you engage them, if you go back again, they will tell you the same thing. But the moment you leave the space, they will go back to their farms. They want to put
Thank you very much, Mar Nyang, Gambia participants. Well, viewers, you're watching QTV's State of Affairs. I am Aliou Cissé, and our guest this week, Mar Nyang, Gambia participants, and said Mati Jau of the Center for Research and Policy Development. We'll go for a short break, and when we return, discussion continues.
Espas Motors is the largest and most modern auto service in the Gambia. Espas Motors is the only authorized dealer in Chevy, Mercedes-Benz trucks, Mercedes-Benz buses, Kia, Ford, Futon Mini and Midi buses, Futon trucks. At Espas Motors, we have qualified professionals who use modern technology to diagnose and repair all brands of motor vehicles. Espas Motor services include auto sales, auto repairs, vehicle painting, availability of high-quality spare parts, towing services. We are reachable at any time. Call Espas Motors on 352222 353-4444 or locate us on the Bertel Harding Highway. Espas Motors.
Welcome back from that short break. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and you're watching QTV State of Affairs. My name is Aliou Cissé. Seth, before we go on the break, you were talking about the issue of health sector. You're trying to blame the government for not doing much in this sector. In the president's address, he said, and I quote, key health indicators have improved, notably, for example, he said maternal and child mortality has declined, skilled birth attendance, postnatal care, and nutrition have improved considerably, Sidi.
I think there are...
Are you surprised?
I would definitely want to hear that maternal mortality has gone down. I will be very happy to hear that. Definitely, that child mortality has also gone down. But gone down from where to where? That's the question for me. Just saying that this has gone down. Oh, I said, yesterday I was eating, but today I ate more, or today the food is not enough. But you are not telling me about the quantity. Because with this one, maternal mortality, there are measurement indicators that you use to measure these things. I don't know exactly the numbers, but there are measurement indicators that are used. I think the president should have been very clear that it has been from this, the deputy has clearly stated the numbers, but why is it that they did not clearly state it when it comes to the healthcare? But then if you say that it has improved, then the people are saying, people outside, people have been complaining about maternal mortality. People have been complaining about the problem with the healthcare system. Are those people, is it like, the way they access in health is different from the way ordinary people are accessing health? Still in this country, women are struggling to do well. And if we haven't taken, because that's why I was talking about thinking about the future. And if we are thinking about the future, we need to start thinking about the health of women. We have to think about the health of our children. And still today, they are confronted with so many diseases that could easily be preventable. And if one individual die on things that could be preventable, that's negligence. And those are the issues that we need to start talking about, not just say it's improved. Everybody can say it has improved, but improved from what to what? And for me, I think that was missing. And it has been missing in most of the other issues. And interestingly, not only healthcare, but within education, I think if you look at it, education, they say it has moved within 1 year, that they have, there's a number. That between 2020 and 2021, schools have increased to 102. And for me, the question is,
They
where
have
are
built
these?
over 2,000 classrooms and
Yeah,
all those
but then
things.
102, I mean, schools, or is it the expansion?
Yeah.
Like, where are those schools? 102 within 1 year? Where are those schools? So for me, it's not just coming and stating that this
So
has
are you
been.
saying they have to give a list of these schools that have been built?
I mean, well, of course, it's our job now as civil society or anybody
Good.
to, to fact check and to see whether actually 100 schools have been built. But for me, the number is really alarming because I haven't seen that much schools being built within 1 year. 102 schools.
So your
Maybe that could have been a typo or
personal
something.
impression on the statement of the president as far as the health sector is concerned. What is your personal impression?
Yeah, my personal impression is that it did not go into detail to tell us what the issues are. You understand? Like you're telling us this has improved, this has improved, this has.
I mean, we all Gambians, we live here and we use the services.
Yes.
So from your point of view, I'm sure you use the services or people close to you use the services. What is your personal impression?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that needs to be done. I mean, there are doctors, there are nurses that are working hard, but yet they don't have resources to do what they're supposed to do. I mean, from time to time we hear complaints. We hear the problem of access, especially we're talking about, like Mar mentioned, that we need to start focusing in the rural communities. Those people are having it more difficult. And the solution that the government did in the third term was to buy ambulances. And ambulances, what could that really do for people that even the road network is terrible? To have access to communities, you have to go into many different areas. So for me, I mean, I think there are monies that are supposed to be invested, but we are not investing in the way that we are supposed to invest it. Are we training our own doctors? Like, what are the specialists? We have people coming in. You know, there are things that sometimes you need to say, well, this year we want to train maybe 10 doctors. We want to train eye care specialists. We want to train heart surgeons. We want to create, or we want to understand what are the basic sickness that Gambians suffer mostly from. And how do we work? Like there is MRC. That MRC is so open that they can work with. But you need to invest in research. We need to invest in understanding our ailments and to solve those things. But the government is not talking
You've
about
been part of the university. I'm sure you are aware that of late, the Ministry of Health is working on specialist doctors training. Are you not aware of that?
Well, I mean, I did not see it in the statement.
Yes.
So, I mean, and I know there have been, like my sister is in the medicine, my wife is in the healthcare. I mean, and I understand what is happening in the healthcare system. I know that there is a lot that can be done. And if I get sick here for basic sickness, I might lose it. Or let's look at even entrance. Do people even understand what is happening to public health education? For me, sometimes I feel this is where we need to invest more. Like, how do we ensure that, I mean, those in the public health sector are provided? But look at what they did to the public health. The public health is not as important as others. I mean, public health is the preventable, it's the where we need to invest more, educate the public about even when they go to the hospitals.
So we were here last year, because it was 9th of September last year when the president made the SONA, and we are back here again. For both of you, what were the gains? I mean, you can't tell me everything that the president have talked about. You know, you call it a report. You know, they are all short comments, you know. I mean, what are the gains? I want from Matt and from Seth.
I mean, first, you have to give them credit on the truth-seeking process, that is the TRRC process. They were able to establish the truth, and then also the recommendations. They've actually accepted 263 out of 265. Now the question is the issue on implementation, the time frame in terms of, I mean, some of the recommendations really are long-term recommendations, but the short-term recommendations, we wanted to know a time frame as to when they will be implementing those recommendations. The issue of reparations also is something that is lingering in the mind of the victims, and they wanted reparation to be done now. I mean, and we also started working around that. I mean, for us, our interest has been on the Potomac Monsoon. I mean, one thing that is actually really so the Potomac Monsoon is Jammeh's monsoon that was forfeited in US. That is now worth 3.5 million. So for us, our interest has always been, now once the money, let's say for example the Americans return back that money to the Gambia, how are they going to be using that money? What we have been seeing before, especially the forfeited assets that were that were actually sold out after the findings of the Janet Commission, no one gets to know how those money were used. Right, so this is also one of the things that we wanted to really focus on. But apart from the, how to call it, the truth-seeking process, I think there are some Other gains really, I mean, that has always been there since 2017. The stability of the country in terms of peace, although security is actually rising. Human rights violation is actually going down compared to the regime before. But it doesn't mean that they have not stopped violating our rights. Today, we have an authoritative system of seeking authority in order to manifest your human rights. Like, for example, there are certain areas where you wanted to actually go out to manifest your frustrations. You have to seek authority from the government. So that is one of the things that they have not really done well in making so that citizens freely.
Because we've not, looked at the 1997 Constitution when it comes to the Public Order Act.
I mean, the Public Order Act says you notify the IGP and they assess, and they will give their go-ahead. Now, let's say, for example, civil society organizations wanted to go out and march in support of the anti-corruption bill. Now, the IGP said, no, I'm not going to give you, and this is something that's actually happened this year, right? We wanted to go out to march in support of the anti-corruption bill. The IGP said, no, you are not going to go and assemble. But when 5 years in support of President Barrow wanted to go and march, we've seen how catastrophic the outcome has been. They were given their permit to do so. So it's really selective and really biased the way they do this. They actually look at what is in favor of the president. They do. So they've not been doing very much on that. And I also think some of the things that really they have not been doing well. I actually don't want to be focusing on the lowlights, but if you also look at the leadership system of the country, you hardly see a president coming out and addressing the country when there is something peculiar going on in this country. You need a leader. You need a leader. You need a leader.
What has been peculiar of late?
You've seen the issue of.
There's a government spokesperson who will issue press releases every now and then. He's very good at that.
Press release.
I think was it yesterday?
Our literacy, I think the country's literacy is about, is it 49% or 51%? How many people can read that that statement with some very selective language that have been used in those press statements? We want a president that comes out, use the local language, and then address people, give hope to the people. There are certain issues that sometimes it becomes too difficult for people to digest. They want a president, they want a leader to come out and then bring hope, and then also layer. Let me tell you one thing. Today, if the government spokesperson comes out and speak, and you weigh the differences between his speech and that of the president, you will see the level of hope that is being given from the president is higher than from the government spokesperson, because this is the person that is being elected. This is the father of the nation that people look up to. So I think we need that type of leadership coming up. And then also, look, if we receive issues of corruption allegations in this country, right? We've been receiving these reports every now and then.
I was committed that issue.
Every now and then. Yeah. Have you ever seen the president come out and say, look, we are going to need to put a stop to this. We are going to make sure there's accountability for these people. We hardly see that. And then what happened is, most of these people, when they have been proved to be corrupt, or when they have been proved to have been engaged in misconduct, what do?
Get appointed.
Not only get appointed, sometimes they will redeploy them. We've seen what happened in the Russian embassy. Today we've seen
I'm talking about the corruption asset matter. What will you point to? A particular place where you say there's corrupt practice happening there, and this is what the government should do.
According to the Afrobarometer survey in 2018,
and even in 2021 as well.
Like if you look at 2018, people were hopeful in this country, and you ask this question about what has changed within that 1 year. I haven't seen much changes outside the fact that we have an autonomous parliament now. I think that's very important. For me, these are the milestones that I look up to, because people are hungrier today than they were maybe even last year, because things are getting harder. Those are issues that are coming up. But in this country, if you're looking at corruption, Mara is talking about corruption and the president not doing anything, but because most of these issues are coming from the office of the president. Whether it's the Kodole initiative that has started, even the security report that we are talking about today, the office of the president has a hand in it, in a way or other. You leave the institution, you go to the office. You see, every country needs to be respected. For a country to be respected, it must start with the office of the president. For me, that's what I say.
But how is that a corrupt act at the airport, the security report? Take us through, because I understand.
We've all read the report. I wouldn't want to go into, but the way that contracts have been awarded in this country is the biggest problem, because they award contracts so that they can get kickbacks, so that they can win elections, they can use that money and give it back to the people. I mean, these are things that we know. These are things that we are not making any allegation, because this is the way that they do these things.
But
And these are issues that we need to bring forward.
Mark, in your case, are you surprised to know that even this security airport deal, there are some government officers who are against? For example, the Minister of Tourism, Hamad Ba, is totally against the idea. Are you surprised that there's some key people in government who are against the idea?
I mean, that's their responsibilities. These state ministers are supposed to advise the president on certain deals. If they believe that that is not a good deal for the country and they advise the president not to enter that deal, the president should do so. But now you have an act, I think that section 20, subsection 15 of the GPPA Act exempts the president from, it gives the president the power from exempting any procuring organization to require authorization from the GPPA. And you give that to SEMNEX. You do that for the Guy Construction Banjul Rehabilitation Project, and then also you do the same thing for Secure Report. Now, I mean, if that continues, what we are going to be thinking is there is an interest that is attached to that particular deal from the office of the president, because according to the report, the Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Justice are against this deal. But the office of the president said, you know, I don't want to use any negative word, but the president says, sit aside, we are going to enter this deal. Now, according to this report that have been published, if we are paying for $37 as a security fee on our ticket, and then you want to impose another $20 on it, how does that make sense? In fact, you wanted to... You
$40, not 20.
Yeah, when you're living...
just go on, but wait a minute.
Okay.
You wanted to attract tourists to come to this country. Now, a tourist of 10, a family coming to the Gambia, before actually leaving this airport, you wanted each and every single of them to pay $20. Number one. Number two, you don't have a country that is clean, sorry to say. You move from the airport, going to your hotels, you see accidents at turntable. There was an accident, 2 cars, taxi and another private car. It has been there for a month. I've been counting. They haven't cleared it. Yesterday, you drive from turntable going to Senegal. You see a cable drop on the road. No one is taking care of it. And then you also see trashes everywhere. That you cannot blame the government. That also behavioral change. But then also, the country, if it is a tourist destination, it has to be attractive to tourists. But we've been doing the same thing over and over again. So I think
when you look at the process of,
let me just conclude there. I think first, before you impose those financial, put it actually, when you impose those fees on people, before you do that, you actually invest on areas that is actually going to be attractive and lucrative to the economy, and most importantly, attracting tourism. So I think, really, you asked about where the corruption is. I mean, the president, from the office of the president, they're asking the security, to establish a task force to investigate the leakages within Secure Report. So there is a corruption within the Secure Report that the office of the president is aware of. Why Secure Report in the first place was paying this $20?
I think I just want us to
look at... Please, we're running out of time, so summarize your question, please.
I mean, I just want to distinguish when you talk about an airport security and Secure Port. I think this needs to be understood.
I mean, we understand that.
What is paid in the ticket is your security that you have at the airport, because there are servicemen and women there providing security to airlines, to you, and to everybody, passengers. What Secure Port is doing is controlling you coming into this country. That little gadgets they have. That's it. So
I don't understand. I'm confused.
He understands what I'm saying. What I'm saying
I'm still lost.
Exactly. What I'm saying, Secure Port.
I don't know. For me, what I understand.
Let me explain. Let me help.
Secure Report is a private. They provide whatever they want to do.
I'm gonna simplify it.
All right.
The airport has its own security.
Yes.
And that is paid in our ticket.
Yes.
The Secure Port, that what we are paying for, isn't necessary here right now. Because whatever Secure Port is doing, our immigration personnel can do it. This is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
This is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So for me, for you guys, do you think we don't have the capacity in this country to train our young men and women in uniform, the immigration, for example, and other sister agencies, to equip them to control the entry points of this country? And we can supply them with all these gadgets and do the job perfectly well, and we don't need Sitio Port? That's my question.
Immigration has existed for many years, and they have done the work for many years. If the Ministry of Justice, for me, you see, I trust government officials in a way that they can give us the right advice. If they say it's not necessary, and I agree, it's not necessary. Like, we are graduating thousands of students at the UTG, computer science. I mean, that's why I'm saying this country is not invested in its people. But we prefer to bring a company and then force our people to pay money so that these people can be enriched while our people continue to be poor in this country. This is what it is. This is why these kind of deals are bad for the country. They are bad for investment. They are bad because look at the tourism sector, for instance, and why Hamad Ba was very vexed with that. And I totally agree. For more than 30 years, before I was born, my mom was in the tourism sector. You know, I got educated through tourism like many other people. Like we are ordinary people that are struggling every day to make ends meet. Today, if tourists come and then you say that they should pay $1,000, and they were supposed to go to the tourist market, for instance, to buy a gift to take back home, they will start thinking about that airport tax. So $40, instead of bringing that to the community for local people to earn a living, they end up going into the tax. And where does that tax money go? Where does that money go to? It goes to Security Port, who will take that money away. And few of our people will enjoy from that money. Do you think that is just unfair for people to start paying that?
And that's why you refuse to pay.
That's why I refuse to pay.
And where's your passport now? I understand this is your passport.
Let them keep it.
It's still
because I will not pay, and the reason why I'm paying, I'm not going to be part of a process that will continue to impoverish us and to benefit other people, where people continue to lack jobs, continue to lack education, quality education, continue to have problem with healthcare, yet we are losing almost 270 million to what? On what basis? Of things that we can invest right on. And here,
Mark, do you agree with Seth Mati?
100%.
On the
I mean,
you,
not
100%
before you even conclude your question. When you go to the airport, when you pay this $20, they give a receipt. I try always to look at what am I paying for. I don't get to see that. The same thing with all the tourists. When you pay, you need to know what you are paying for. I mean, those gadgets that you were talking about, maybe these are the advanced ones. Look, I mean, we have to give credit where credit is due. The government of the Gambia were successful in Gambianizing our judiciary. We have Gambians that are now, fulfilling these seats at the judiciary, and they've been doing pretty well. So why not give this?
It's Gambians who are sitting there, but there are 270 million or more of that is going to be collected. Does it worth that training that they have given these people?
That's where I'm coming, right? These are not sophisticated.
These are not at the UTG. They know computer already.
It's not a sophisticated thing to do. Taking fingerprints, entering data, and
that's what I'm saying. Do you have to pay millions and millions of dollars for that?
No,
for 11 years?
For 11 years, and automatically for another 10 years.
It is not a good deal. It is a very bad deal.
What will you suggest now? What will you suggest
My suggestion is to scrap of this security report, and then also, terminate the contract, and then, bring in our immigration.
They are already trained to do it, and they can do it very well.
They have been doing this before. Before security report, have been doing it. So it's not a sophisticated thing that our immigration officer cannot do it.
Travel. Will you pay $20 at the airport?
I will until I get to the airport.
Always do it when you are coming back. That is, if you want to protest.
But one thing we need to understand, I don't think they had the powers to keep your passport. Anyway.
For me, honestly, I think, you see, one of the things, in Gambia, what we do, Monica, then help suñ bopa. You see, Gambians are everywhere. You live outside. You know what Gambians are doing. Gambians are doing amazingly well. Some are integrated in so many other countries. We are locally trained here. We are struggling to help build our society. But yet, we allow people to come and extort, take from us and take it away. And yet, we expect this country to develop. And it is few of us that will be allowing those things to happen. And yet they say that they are serving the country. For me, this is why I'm angry. And this is why I said I'm not going to pay. Let me be the only one.
We've just seen this birth certificate thing that is going on. It's our own people doing it. We don't have a Sitio Port or a foreign company or a Holland company.
Look at the IAC. IAC registered everybody here.
Yeah, so...
It's not a sophisticated thing. This is the basic
computer. I started using webcam when I was in junior school. Today they bring in webcam and then offices are having
have you applied for your birth certificate?
Not yet. But I will definitely have to, because
you have to collect your passport first.
Well, let's see how.
Gambia participate. Have you investigated this birth certificate and see stop what is
I mean, honestly, we cannot investigate everything in this country. The corruption that is going on in this country is just overwhelming.
I mean, others are saying the QR code, whether it's working and all that. Have you checked that out?
I mean, these are things that is going to Gambia participate.
Gambia participants need to help us with that. Whether the QR code is working.
And they have a very important look at Gambia participate. You are talking about the government and civil society. They develop a marble app where people can really see election results.
Exactly.
And you're telling me government with billions cannot do anything?
Well, viewers, I'm afraid we
hope they will do that.
Into this week's State of Affairs. I mean, we can spend the next 2-3 hours here talking about the SONA and so many issues happening in this country. But I mean, this is all what time allows us. And then thank you very much, Mar Nyang, Executive Director of Gambia Participants, for coming on the program. And Seth Mati, thank you so much for being on the program. My co-host, Sidi.
Thank you.
I'll be at the airport to watch out.
You know, interesting enough, I found a cheap ticket in Dakar.
Exactly.
So I'm
Okay.
flying through Dakar.
Okay. Well, viewers on the production team, thank you so much for watching. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye.